It's nefarious, man. Like, the brain works in fucked up ways.
The mind is one of the most deceiving, manipulative pieces of equipment, flesh, human bodies on earth. I never have trusted my brain.
All of that weight lives in your head, and you are the decision maker.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
Hi, it's Ronsley. If this is your first volume, welcome. This is a weekly series where I go inside the mind of an entrepreneur, artist, athlete, academic to decipher what is the psychology of our decisions. I'd like to start by acknowledging the traditional custodians throughout Australia and recognize their continuing connection to land, waters, and community. I pay my respects to them and their cultures and to elders, both past, present, and emerging, of the land I am standing on today. I extend my respects to the Aboriginal and Torres Strait Islander people who listen to this. I wonder what you thought of Mark Yerika Paulson in the previous volume. It has got to be my favorite conversation. Also, makes me feel a bit more Australian, if that means anything specifically. I'm not sure. But I realized more and more that voices need to be spoken and messages need to be heard for movements to be created and made sustainable. Taking care of the operating system and the programs that are running in the background is super important. And no one could be more well placed than my next guest. He is a serial entrepreneur, someone who has been refining his work and message for decades. He is a very accomplished speaker, author, and influencer who has technically died 3 times. His name, Hal Elrod.
Yeah, I mean, professionally, I think author and keynote speaker. I think those are the 2 main things that I do. And if you could measure that in a few ways. One, how much time do I invest in each of those, right? In terms of the work that I do, that's where I put most of my time. Of my work that I've done, what's made the biggest impact for people? And arguably it's my books and my messages, my speeches. And then also, what do I enjoy most? And that's actually speaking more than writing. Writing's kind of a pain. But so those are, I would say professionally, I'm an author and a speaker for the most part. And then, but more than anything, I realize more and more every day that I'm a dad, and that is my highest priority, and a husband. But, I don't get paid for those. In fact, those cost me a lot of money.
Today, we go inside the mind of a creator who used affirmations to cure himself from a very rare, aggressive form of cancer, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which has a 10 to 30% survival rate, amongst other things. The things we say to ourselves is kind of key to our operating system and what we land up doing in life.
Finally, the 3-year-old who is definitely America Strong.
It's the moment moving so many. The simple walk to school, the 3-year-old named Aeon wearing his backpack and remembering the words his mother taught him at just 2. What he says to himself over and over again.
I am smart. I am blessed. I can do anything. I am smart. I am blessed. I can do anything. I am smart. I am blessed. I can do anything.
Just like what we believe about ourselves, and if you haven't considered this going into this volume, I'd like you to consider, what is your shared knowledge? Like, what is common sense for you? And who better to explain shared knowledge than a First Nation elder from volume 38. This is Mark Yerika Paulson.
It's like when you look at any adult who's grown up, their childhood informs their identity and resilience and knowledge, etc., the way they move in the world and live in the world. And so we can't look at Australians who are like, look, it was never brought in front of me. It was never part of my schooling. It was never part of my circle of friends conversation, except what we picked up around the edges in our peripheral vision through news snippets or usually stereotypes that may not be shining brightly on our relationship. And not enough knowledge then becomes shared knowledge, jointly understood knowledge. So in a way, our history is not our common sense.
Right. So what we think of ourselves and what we say to ourselves is important. That is key. Hal has had the most amazing impact on my life. 7 years ago, about $500,000 in debt, I was looking for anything that would change the situation I was in. During that time, one of the most influential books and concepts that made me start waking up early in the morning is the concept of the miracle morning. It is a practice that I do to this day. And it is, well, how?
The miracle morning practice, which is made up of these 6 practices known by the acronym SAVERS, the savers. That's how I'm able to do that in the morning and set myself up with the right mindset to go throughout the day. And even if I have a bad day, it's like instead of having one bad day flow into another bad day, flow into another bad day and kind of have a downward spiral, the miracle morning allows me to hit the reset button every day, right? Really every night before bed, because instead of going to bed worried about my problems and looking forward to facing them in the morning, I know that I get to wake up and I get to put myself in a peak physical, mental, emotional, and spiritual state utilizing that miracle morning practice. And so for me, the savers, which for anyone that's not familiar, the S is for silence. That's your meditation and or your prayer time. The A is for affirmations, which are kind of have a bad rap the way they've been taught by a lot of self-help gurus. They're not goofy, like you don't just pump yourself up and say, I'm amazing. They're articulating your highest commitments and clarifying the behaviors and the actions that will ensure that you achieve those commitments so that you're very present to them every single day. The V is for visualization. And visualization is where, for me, it's about creating a peak emotional state through seeing yourself executing your highest priorities in that peak state. You kind of are role playing, rehearsing, if you will, what it would feel like to live the perfect day, if you will, to execute all of your priorities, all your commitments, and do so with a smile, with confidence, right? With, in that peak state. The E is for exercise. And it's about just putting, even if it's, 5 minutes in the morning, just getting your body, getting blood and oxygen flowing to your brain so you think clearer, you feel better, you have more energy. The R is for reading, right? Reading anything that you need to improve any area of your life. And the final S is for scribing, which is a fancy word for writing or journaling, right? So those are the 6 practices that make up the miracle morning. And you can do them, most people do them in 1 hour. You can, it's totally customizable. You can do 30-minute version. A lot of people do 30 minutes. You can reorganize how you do them. But here's the point. With gap focus, the idea that we have this, it creates this negative emotional state where it hurts our confidence, it hurts our self-esteem because we're focusing on the gap between where we are and where we can be.
Morning rituals are a really common routine for many successful entrepreneurs. According to an article posted in Forbes, Richard Branson claims that he gets up at 5 a.m. every day, no matter where he is, because it gives him a head start from the rest of the world.
Miracles happen all the time. And Kelsey Ramsden from Volume 7 introduced me to this idea about the speed of soul. The speed at which some things happen is not logical and not planned and not at the speed of intellect. It happens at the speed of soul.
The soul, so the speed of soul for me, I think about the miracle equation, and that for me is the formula of how I, anyone who's highly successful, including you and what you just explained, to me, there's 2 decisions that went into creating that, what I would call a miraculous result. And number 1 is unwavering faith. And number 2 is extraordinary effort. If you think about the world's most successful people, and exactly what you did is you established unwavering faith that this event, We Are Podcast, would be a success. You put forth extraordinary effort. And then the most important piece of those 2 decisions is that you don't make them once, you make them every single day, regardless of your results, until the last possible moment. And when you do that, you see that, and that's the speed of soul. You see miraculous results, and they always show up after you've had to overcome self-doubt and fear and feeling like you want to quit, right? Like your faith is tested. Your drive toward the effort is thwarted because when you're not getting results, it's demotivating, right? It's discouraging. And so, but if you can continue to make those two decisions, for anybody listening, if you can establish unwavering faith that you can achieve a certain result, an outcome, like for me, it was to change 1 million lives one morning at a time. Unwavering faith that I could do it, extraordinary effort. I did that first year, I did 150 plus podcast interviews on other people's podcasts. I was on over a dozen TV shows around the country. I did 52 of my own podcast episodes. I gave 36 speeches. Like I put forth extraordinary effort and I still didn't hit the goal. It's about doing it until you achieve the result. I have no doubt in my mind, because I've gone through the process, when you go after a big goal, and I call it a miracle. And the way I define that is it's any result or any outcome that is beyond the realm of what you really believe to be possible for you, or probable for you, I should say, right? Any measurable, meaningful outcome that's beyond the realm of what you believe is probable for you. And therefore, when you hit that outcome, right, it feels like a miracle. If we continue to maintain unwavering faith, put forth extraordinary effort, it's almost always in the 11th hour that everything comes together, and the miracle is realized, so to speak.
That kind of miracle has happened more times than I actually acknowledge. And I guarantee that you don't acknowledge miracles happening to you too. Think about what has had to happen or come together for you to just be born, leave alone be in the position you are right now to listen to this podcast. So, one of my weaknesses within Hal Savers' framework is journaling. I haven't been consistent in implementing a regular journal, and I know lots of people in similar situations. So I wonder if Hal had any advice for that.
Here's what I found at the end of my first year journaling, but the week between Christmas and New Year's, I went back and read all of my entries. And while I did that, I had another notebook open and I wrote down on one side lessons, accomplishments, and commitments. That was it. So I would read and I would be like, oh yeah, I totally learned this thing, right? And I would write it in the lessons. And then I would go, oh yeah, I forgot that I accomplished, I did that, right? And because you're reading the journal, you're reading things like, man, I'm working hard on writing the Miracle Morning. I hope people like this. What if nobody bought, right? And then you realize, oh my gosh, I finished it. So there's an accomplishment. Here's the point. By doing what I call that an annual journal review, right? Nothing fancy, but most of us end the year with heightened gap focus. We end the year and go, man, there's so much more I wanted to do. I did not reach all of my goals. I'm not where I want to be. And we end the year often feeling like a failure, feeling like we could have, would have, should have done so much more, but we didn't. And right. And what happened when my first journal review and having those pages of lessons, accomplishments, and then commitments for the next year is I went, dude, I killed it last year. But I would not have known that. I literally would not have known that unless I had gone through 365 journal entries, right? And written down, and I think I had a list of, it was like 20, I don't remember exactly, but like 26 accomplishments or something. I'm like, I gave my first paid speech. I wrote my first book. I doubled my best year. I did all these things. And so that, to me, that's exactly how I do it. It's by looking back over my journal. And now I don't wait until the end of the year. In fact, interestingly enough, this morning I did a journal review. So I started doing the free writing 2 months ago. This morning I went back and I read every single journal entry. And then I made a list of lessons, accomplishments, and commitments, right? I literally did that this morning. So that's it, man. And it's profound in terms of what it does for your self-esteem. And, it's so encouraging, but also just for your clarity. You're like, wow, I learned so much, I accomplished so much, and now I have clear commitments to implement these lessons and follow up on these accomplishments so that moving forward, I extract all the value from these journal entries and I accomplish and achieve and feel even better.
Do you remember I told you about Hal having cancer? Well, he has been through adversity before.
In 2008, when the U.S. economy crashed, I kind of crashed with it. That's when I came with the Miracle Morning to turn that situation around. And then most recently, 3.5 years ago, I was diagnosed with a very rare aggressive form of cancer, acute lymphoblastic leukemia, which has a 10 to 30% survival rate. So it's a really grim diagnosis, which, that's a 70 to 90% chance I was going to die. And I applied that miracle equation, unwavering faith. I told my doctors, I said, there is, in my mind, I just want you guys to know, I said, I respect your data, but in my mind, there is a 100% chance that I will be in that 10 to 30% that survives this cancer. And I lived every day with affirmations. I am committed to healing from cancer and living to be 100 plus years old alongside my wife and our 2 kids. No matter what, there is no other option, right? And so I affirmed that every single day. And I thought about dying every day, and I got scared about dying every day. But every day I overrode my fear with that faith, and I used affirmations to do that.
When we come back, how to use affirmations, create them for yourself, and the exact things Hal did to cure himself completely from cancer, including his exact affirmations.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
The main objective of this audio project is to bring together entrepreneurs and creatives who share similar values so that they can find the courage to put out their authentic voice for the right people to hear, which allows for them to make their impact on the world. Every great movement started with a memorable speech. For access to full-length interviews, go to psychologyoфentrepreneurship.com and click the button.
Okay, let's start with why affirmations.
For me, that affirmations, of all the practices of the savers, affirmations are my favorite, because to me, I get to design the blueprint for what I want to think, what I want to feel, what I want to believe, and what I'm committed to doing. And I just keep living in alignment with those affirmations, and you become a better and better and better version of yourself. And you start to see the results show up, and you're like, wow. And then you update your affirmations and evolve your affirmations as you evolve yourself.
I'd love if you could recount that story as you remember it, Hal, when the cancer diagnosis came in.
When I was diagnosed with cancer, I'm sitting across. So I was diagnosed, and first I was misdiagnosed with pneumonia. And then I kept getting worse. My heart was failing, my lungs were failing, my kidneys were failing, and they couldn't figure out what was wrong. And I finally got diagnosed with cancer, and they told me to go get a second opinion, though, because this cancer is so rare. There's not a lot. Most hospitals aren't familiar with treating it. So they sent me to Houston, Texas. I live in Austin, Texas, to MD Anderson, which is one of the top cancer hospitals. And when he diagnosed me, or he confirmed that, I told the oncologist, I said, hey, I'm a big believer in holistic healing. I would like to heal this holistically. Can you support me in doing that? And he said, Hal, I appreciate that you want to do that, but you don't have a cancer that affords you time to do that. He said, you're near death right now. He said, I would estimate that if you don't start chemo tomorrow, you'll be dead in the next 3 to 7 days. And now I didn't know this doctor. I just met him that day. So I kind of was angry. Like, my wife's sitting there squeezing my leg, and she's crying. And I'm thinking that this is like a threat for him to try to, bully me into doing chemo. Right. And I'm like, okay, can we have 24 hours to go home and talk about this? And I ended up finding out that, once we Googled it, we're like, oh, he's not exaggerating. Like, this is a cancer that you die, you get it and then you die within a few weeks. And I had already had it for at least 9 or 10 days since I've been going through this, and I was misdiagnosed. So here's the decision I made. I called him back, and I basically realized that if I don't do chemo, I'm dead. Like, I already ate a really healthy diet. I was already healthy. So it's like, there's not that many tweaks I could do. So here's my commitment. I said, okay, I'll do chemo because I feel like I have to. I don't think it's a choice at this point if I want to live. I said, but I'm going to do every single holistic practice that's available as if I were not doing chemo. So while I do chemo, I'm going to combine the best of Western medicine, allopathic medicine, with the best of, holistic practices in Eastern medicine. So here was my extraordinary effort. And by the way, this is extraordinary effort. I took, I think, it was like, depending on the timing of the cancer, between 50 and 70 supplements every single day, like organic whole food supplements, all different kinds. I did acupuncture. I did lymphatic massage. I did ozone sauna. I always joke, this is the most extraordinary effort. I did coffee enemas. I always say there's no effort more extraordinary than sticking a tube up your butt with hot coffee. And I read book after book after book on natural healing. I'm trying to think of what else I did. I'm sure there's more. I did my miracle morning every day. My miracle morning was focused on healing. My affirmations were focused on healing. My meditation was focused on healing, right? I would meditate and just feel every cell in my body. I would imagine it just perfectly, just healing. And I read a book by Dr. Bernie Siegel, who I had on my podcast last week. It's called Love, Medicine, and Miracles. And he said the most powerful force available to a human being to boost your immune system is unconditional love. So I would just, in the morning, I would meditate on feeling of unconditional love for my body, for everything. And I was grateful. This is a really important piece. I made the decision the day I was diagnosed with cancer, I made the decision that cancer would be the best thing that ever happened to me, which meant it was my responsibility to figure out why that was, to search for what it was about cancer that I could learn from, that I could benefit from, and that I could help other people with. Right. And I decided, and I told my wife, I said, sweetheart, I know you're scared. I said, but number one, I'm going to beat this. Number two, I've made a commitment that I'm going to be the happiest and the most grateful I've ever been in my entire life while I go through what I am pretty sure will be the most difficult time in our lives. And all of the things are true. But I think for anybody, most of us think I'm happy and grateful when things are going good. Right. But I'm here to tell you that no, when things are going bad, it's even more important that you are consciously happy and grateful. And that's what that miracle morning enabled me to do, is I just kept going back to it. And the doctors were amazed by me combining all those holistic practices with all, they were amazed at how well I handled chemotherapy. And I mean, when I say well, it was most of the time well, but there were times where I was in the ER at 2 a.m. with 104-degree fever on death's doorway again. Like it was very difficult. In fact, if you go to YouTube and you type in Hal Elrod cancer, there are 4 cancer video blogs that I recorded while I was going through it. And you can see my authentic attitude toward it. I'm like, hey guys, they're giving me chemo and my hair is going to fall out tomorrow. So I spiked my hair up today one last time. I was just always focused on the positive and at peace with the painful, And I think that for all of us, we can always be at peace with the painful, because if you can't change it, you might as well be at peace with it, and then focus on the positive and let that create your reality. Your reality is created by what you focus on, not what's happening to you. Because there's always a page that lists a bunch of bad and a page that lists a bunch of good. And your reality is determined by which page you're focusing on most of the time.
In a quote from social psychologist and professor at the University of North Carolina, Barbara Fredrickson, she states that, I think of positive emotions as nutrients. In the same way that we need to eat a variety of fruits and vegetables to be healthy, we need a variety of positive emotions in our daily experience to help us become more resourceful versions of ourselves.
Okay, wow. Affirmations feel like the most uncomfortable thing to do because it feels kind of airy-fairy and not really implementable. Right? Hal?
I'm going to give your listeners, if I can, 3 steps to create affirmations that produce tangible, measurable results in your life. Because yes, I like to feel better, but I'm not going to feel better if I don't start seeing results in my life, right? I don't want to feel better in the moment. I want to feel better in the long run. So number 1, affirm what you are committed to. So instead of saying, I am wealthy, right? Or I am a millionaire, say, I am committed to becoming wealthy, or I am committed to earning blank dollars this year. And then I always like to add on to the end of that, no matter what, there is no other option. Like just to really solidify, I am committed to this outcome. For me, I was committed to change 1 million lives one morning at a time, no matter what. There is no other option. And that's why after year one, when I failed, my commitment didn't waver. I just recommitted and recommitted and recommitted year after year after year until it finally happened. The second step to creating affirmations that produce results, number 2, is why is this crucial for you? Like, why is it, or you could say, why is it deeply meaningful to you? So I am committed to blank, no matter what, there's no other option, because I want to provide financial freedom for me and my family, or financial security for me and my family. Or a lot of times for me, when I set a big goal, the why is because I want to continue to become the person that I need to be to create everything else I want for my life and show others how to do the same. That for me is a universal why for everything I do, to become the person that I need to be to create everything that I want for my life, and so that I can show other people how to do the same. That to me is everything I do. That's the underlying why. And then the third step is, what are the specific actions that you will take and win that will virtually guarantee your outcome, right? So those are 3 steps to create affirmations that aren't woo-woo. You're not lying to yourself. You're not promising that everything on your vision board is going to magically appear in your life one day, right? Those are affirmations where you're literally programming your subconscious mind with the commitment that is necessary, and you're programming your subconscious mind with the reminder, the fuel, which is the why, the why you're doing this and why you're willing to do whatever it takes and why you're committed. And then maybe most important, if not equally important, you are programming your conscious behavior. You're directing your conscious behavior with the specific actions at the specific times that you will take them. And if you combine those 3 steps and you do them over and you affirm that and you live it over an extended period of time, you can't fail. The only variable is timing. That's it.
Insane. And while you are creating your affirmations, I would like us to go back to when Hal mentioned gap focus, and how always feeling like there's a gap isn't the best way to approach situations.
It's making a conscious decision to be at peace with where you are while you maintain a healthy sense of urgency to get up every day and move in the direction of where you want to go, to do the things that will get you there. And I think for me, the biggest realization that enables that and really makes it not feel fake, because some people might go, well, but that's not authentic because I want to be there and I'm upset that I'm not there, right? Here's what I realize is that when you finally get to the place in your life that you've been working so hard for so long, you almost never wish it would have happened any sooner. Instead, when you arrive, when you get there, you look back and you go, oh, it was supposed to take exactly as long as it took. It wasn't supposed to happen overnight like I wanted it to. We're all very impatient. We want what we want and we want it now. We're in a culture of like now, right? You can, Amazon 2-day Prime shipping, but the things that we're working towards, right? They take a long period of time, right? It took you, 11 years and so on and so forth. It took me 6 years to reach my goal with the Miracle Morning. And so for me, it's when you realize, and this isn't one of my affirmations. I have a lot of affirmations that kind of help manage the mindset, right? Self-encouragement, if you will. But I have an affirmation that reminds me when I finally achieve any and everything that I'm working towards, I will not wish it would have happened any sooner. So therefore, be at peace with where I am every single day, enjoy every single moment, and do at least one thing each day that moves me in the direction of the things in my future that I'm aspiring towards.
You can say all the affirmations and feel all the goodness, but if your calendar does not show it, it is kind of useless. Just like when people say family is their number one priority.
When I've given speeches before at entrepreneurial events, I'll say, hey, raise your hand if family is your number one priority. If you're married, you have wife, kids, family's number one, or husband and kids, and almost every hand goes up. And then I say, if I were to look at your schedule, would it be obvious that you raise your hand for an honest reason, and raise your hand if your schedule shows that, right? And nobody's hand goes back up almost. And for me, when I got cancer a few years ago, I think for a lot of people when they get or they're facing death, it's a wake up call. And I really realized that, wow, I was lying to myself saying my family is number one. I believed it. I really thought they were, because in my heart they were. But my friend John, when he founded Front Row Dads, he realized that his kids aren't going to remember how much money he made, or how many speeches he gave, or how many books he sold, or how many mortgage payments, right? They're going to remember the impact, and not just remember, they're going to be the impact that he made in their lives with the amount of time and energy he invested in them. And so now one of the things I do that's really, anybody can model this, is I don't allow myself in the morning to read a business book until I've read a parenting or a marriage book. And it's just kind of a reminder first thing in the morning during my miracle morning that family is number one. And I'm not even allowed to invest energy into business until I've invested energy into what in my heart of hearts is the top, priority in my life. And I still, it's funny, man. It's like, it's like I never feel like I can spend enough time with them. So I'm balancing, like, how do I just feel? It's like most people in life, you always focus on the gap between where you are and where you could be or should be. And for me as a dad, I think I do that more than anywhere, where I'm like, man, am I spending enough time with them? Am I influencing them enough? I should be with them. You know what I mean? Like, now I'm like OCD about it, and trying to find that balance between spending a lot of time with them and then really feeling good and at peace, and not feeling like I could be a better dad. I should be a better dad. It's like, I have to have other people in my life sometimes pat me on the back, be like, Hal, you're an awesome dad. Like you try so hard, and I'm like, okay, maybe you're right. I don't know.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
I interviewed Hal because Hal Elrod is an American author, keynote speaker, and success coach, according to Wikipedia. He is the author of the best-selling book, The Miracle Morning, The Miracle Equation, founder of the Miracle Morning book series, and the host of the Achieve Your Goal podcast. In 1999, he was involved in a serious car accident, which he later recovered from. Most recently, he was diagnosed with a rare form of cancer that he has recovered from. Hal is an international speaker and entrepreneur. He is an inspiration, an ultramarathon runner, an amazing dad and husband.
Psychology of Entrepreneurship.
This is a Must Amplify production. Special thanks to every guest expert that has appeared on the show. Editing, voiceovers, and sound design by Kaylee Bonnyman and Tiago Vega. Guest research and content by Claire Gould and Corinne Castles. Project managed by Kaylee Bonnyman. Produced and hosted by me, Ronsley Vaz. For more episodes and where to listen, go to mustamplify.com/POE.
Hey, it's Kaylee from Must Amplify. I'm the sound engineer for this volume of Psychology of Entrepreneurship. I'm part of the team that made this production come alive. I work as a part of a global team with our studios based in West End, Brisbane, Australia. If you would like a podcasting checklist, email me at kaylee@amplifyagency.media. That's KAILI@amplifyagency.media. We specialize in finding your voice and making sure it's heard by the right people. If you are considering whether a podcast is a good idea for your business, check out our other show on shouldistartapodcast.com.